Vasquez, a former MIR activist and political prisoner in Chile. Maria Vasquez Aguilar, a child exile and a co-founder of the Chile Solidarity Network and coordinator of Chile 50 Years UK. And Gilberto Hernandez, who is a former journalist from Valparaiso in Chile, who was imprisoned as a political prisoner for 2 years in Chile following the coup, came to the UK, studied politics and sociology in Leeds, and while he was there with others, produced this amazing mural in Chile, Chilean mural in Leeds at the university, which has very recently been rediscovered within the last 5 years, rediscovered and restored. So I'm really looking forward to this meeting. Between them, they'll be telling us about the society that was being built under Salvador Allende's government prior to the coup in 1973, the horrendous aftermath of the coup, the resistance of the Chilean people, and the importance of international solidarity. And finally, of course, the story of the mural that was created by Gilberto and others in Leeds University in the mid-70s. In terms of housekeeping, a couple of things just to mention. If there's a fire, which there hopefully won't be, that's the fire exit. We'll make sure the door is open. In terms of how today will be structured, we'll have well, we're going to play it by ear a little bit. That's the beauty of having a sort of officially a three-hour meeting. We'll once the presentations start, we'll have presentations for about an hour, or maybe slightly less, depending on the length of them. They'll be roughly 25 to 30 minutes each. We may have 2 presentations and then have a break, or we may have 3 and then have a break. And then we have a 20-25 minute break, in which you are very welcome to help yourself to these nibbles and get a drink from the bar. And then we have a sort of discussion, question and answer session after that. So to some extent, we'll be a little bit flexible about that. The only thing I'll mention now is if it's really nice to see some new faces today alongside some familiar faces, but if anybody is not on our email list and would like to be added to our email list, I think the best thing is if they could just come and see me during the interval and give me their email and I'll add you. Is that okay? I think without any further ado, I think I will hand over to our first speaker. Sergio, you going first?
Yep.
Brilliant. Please, could you...
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, and yeah, it's really great to see so many people here today. The house is full, so it's really, really good. And it means that, you know, there is a lot of enthusiasm about, you know, what happened in Chile in those days. And also reflect, you know, the connection between the solidarity and the people here in England. So I will start my presentation. I think there is a little bit of personal thing involved, but there is a little bit of history too. We arrived here, my family arrived here in 1978. That was June 1978. After staying, you know, living through all the very important period in Chile, pre-73, and then, you know, even before that, the triumph of Allende was very important for Chile. So, and then after that came a time where there was, you know, military coup, and after the military coup, I was very young in those days, and we went to the resistance for 2 years. I was in concentration camp, very terrible concentration camp in Chile, the worst one. And finally, thanks to the solidarity, you know, we went out of the concentration camp in 1976, and we stayed in Chile still until, you know, the situation was too terrible for us as a family. And we received a letter from the UK embassy from London, just out of the blue, saying you have a visa to come here. And it was at the right moment when the situation was terrible in those days. I'm talking 1978. So that's that's the little bit of background of what happened to me and what happened to my family in those days. So going back to in Chile, the 60s was a very important period for Chile, very important, and it's for the whole Latin America, in some way, United States have always tried to change the path of the Chilean people, I would say. By 1964, when Allende was competing against the right wing and the Christian Democracy, 1964 was the time when Allende was not elected, just because the United States, as a consequence of the Cuban Revolution and the way how the people was projected in Latin America everywhere. So 1964, I was only 12 years old at that time. But you can feel, given my background, I come from a background from the north of Chile, where my father was a miner, a saltpeter miner. And then, you can see the evolution on those time in terms of the feeling of the need for change in all the sectors. At that time, all the saltpeter have finished. The trade, in those days was the white gold for Chile. It was completely finished, and the miners have to go all around Chile, back to their families. And yes, there was economical crisis in those days, but at the same time, the spirit of the miner was moved along Chile to the south, particularly in the south, which joined with the peasants, and also in the different towns around Chile. So the 60s in those days were quite important in the sense that there was a level of political activity very important at the level of the people. Just ordinary people participating in politics. And so 1964 came, Allende was defeated by the time. There was a program from the United States which was called the Revolution in Freedom. And that was when the Christian Democrats were elected. Right? So United States have always been trying to, to direct, the political in Chile, the situation in Chile. So, but at that point, the mass movement was important, and the TUC was the main, organization with a great capacity to organize, not only at the level of the trade union, but also at the level of the communities. Right? So there was two important things that happened in that period of time, which reflect later on the way how Allende projected himself to the people. One was the agrarian reform, because of the pressure from the peasants in the south. They were forced to create the agrarian reform. Most of in the south of Chile, it was based on the latifundio. It's how you call the latifundio? Landowner, right? Which they have, land which were not used at all. And they have, these are the typical oligarchy system in Chile, where the south, very beautiful areas, they didn't do anything. And the peasants were fighting to recover the land and, and create rich, wealth from there. So they were forced to create this agrarian reform. And the second important thing that he did, as a product of the popular movement in those days, was the Chilenization, not the nationalization, but the Chilenization of the copper. So it was the first step where, the Chile get conscious about being the first country, the country which produced more, one of the wealth, which is the copper mine. I think it was the third in the world in terms of the production of copper in those days. So it was put in the hands of the Chile, not as nationalized, but a compromise between the different industry from the USA and the state. So it was a kind of Chilenization. But due to the circumstances that I said before about the end of the area of the trade and the mining industry, there was a strong movement, and the people were asking for better conditions. So at the end of the day, Frey experiment ended up in difficult, In the tradition in Chile, they say that Chile had been the Switzerland of Latin America, or because there was never a military coup. It's true, there was not so many military coups in Chile before, before Pinochet, but what it was, there was a lot of massacres in Chile. I mean, during the period of after Chile being a country liberated from Spain and instituted as a republic, there were about 33 massacres. And Frey, which was a Democrat, also carried on 3 massacres during that period. One against the copper, one against the people the people who work in the mining, copper mine, one against the people who were in the shanty town, and the other in the peasant. There were 3 massacres in this town. So you can see that the confrontation on those days was quite high. And Allende, and the project of the Popular Union grew upon this mobilization in those days. And also the Cuban Revolution had a very big impact in those days, because one, it proved to the young people that socialism was possible in Latin America. I think it was the first time we say, okay, it is possible, we can do it, why not? And so the student movement at that time, which university in Chile were they call it the ivory tower. They didn't connect with the people, with the masses. They are isolated completely. It was mainly for the ruling classes where the people send their students. But at that period, it changed. I'm talking 1967 was the first, student strike in the Catholic University. It was one of the more reactionary universities. And it was a communion between the peasant, the student, and the workers. And that powerful movement was the one which brought, Allende to power. So that's, I would say, by, September 1970, I was 17-year-old, was going to 18-year-old. And because of all this movement and this, I was, have the opportunity to go to the university in those days. In other circumstances, I couldn't go to the university because it was very, very expensive. But because of the student revolution inside the university, they went to a strike which lasted about 3 months and repeated themselves in different universities. They managed, in a way, to create conditions for working class people to go to university. So, by 1970, at the time, just before the school started there in March, so just before the election, I went to the Santa Maria University, which is the engineering university in Chile. Arriving there was a completely different experience for me. I had never left my old town, very far away from the major city, which is Valparaiso and Santiago. And then, but I can picture myself in those days that it was natural for many students to form committees to support the election of Allende, independent of all the other political parties, because the political parties were very active. But as a student, you just form you can see that where you're going, and you can see that the government is going to benefit the people. And then, you form this committee. And so, 18-year-old I was at that time, and then I put my vote for El Chicho. We call Allende Chicho, for Allende. So everybody, and with a considerable number of students. And so when Allende was elected, was happiness everywhere. It was a very important moment for Chile. And Allende used most of the law, which were a little bit created by the Christian Democrats, and then deepened this law. Okay, so instead of a Chileanization of the copper, he made a fundamental change there, and he nationalized the copper industry completely on the hands of the people of the state in Chile. Right? And that brought a big confrontation with USA because they were owned, still were owned, about 70% were owned by those companies. Only a little bit were passed to the Chilean state through this kind of Chileanization. And that's when the confrontation, of course, was from the very, very beginning. Although, you don't see that in those days, how deep United States and other countries from Europe were involved again this new project in Chile, because it was socialism, special socialism, which in Chile was called with empanada and red wine. Empanada is the typical food in Chile. That was the socialism that was put on the plate, and it caught the attention from Europe, because it was socialism, Pacific transition, to a socialist society. Well, Allende, the first thing he did this 40 measure, which favored all the people. 40 measure, like half a liter of milk for all the kids in the school, and grant for all the kids. There was 40 measures were directly to increase the standard of living of the population in Chile. Especially in those times where there was a lot of shanty town around the cities. But at the same time, he created the state social area, where he nationalized a lot of industry. In those days, Chile was industrialized. Valparaiso, in the region where I live, it was a major industrial hub in this area. It's a port, so there was a lot of industrial belt in those days. And so, he passed the most important industry to the control of the state. That's why, again, another confrontation with the bourgeoisie and with the United States. This, the changes that were happening in those days, it make a participation of the people in politics very, very important. Right? So everybody was, joining different organizations. In the first election that Allende had, that was in 1970, it was the municipal election. From being a 30% of the votes, he jumped to about 49%. That was the first municipal election in Chile. And so the support is when the people say, Allende was elected only with 33%, that is true in terms of the how they count the vote. But in the first year of this social revolution, Allende have a considerable support in different areas of the country. And he deepened the agrarian reform, and they created the communal councils in the different, in the south particularly, and also in the center. And of course, the participation of the worker increased because now the industry were in their hands, so they were directly connected with the production. Of course, still were controlled by the government because he used all the legal element that at the moment he had, and they name interventors for any industry which were transferred to the social enterprise. Okay, so I would say that those and the participation in this political and cultural activity. Yeah, we have to mention also the cultural activity. Prior to by the 1960s, end of the beginning of the 70s, in Chile was the new song, appeared the new song, as a counterpart of the typical folkloric song that were teaching the school. It appeared the new song. That's where Victor Jara, Violeta Parra, and all the people that appeared in those days. And also have a very big, because they were singing to the people, it resonated very, very well. And there was a lot of cultural production of the day, and musical group like people like Quilapayún, Inti, and these are the well-known outside because at the time of the coup they were in Italy. Some of them were in Italy and in France. But in different regions you have groups, musical groups. So there was a cultural revolution too at the same time. So this participation in the culture and the student at the moment, one of the fundamental things that the university reform did is that the university that I was there, it was a technical university, engineering university, and of course most of the people graduated and to go work for industry in those days. But nobody teaching the university social science. So the student asked, we need a department of social science because we want to know, we want to learn that when you graduate as an engineer, where do you go? You go to carry on production, or you are going to favor, the people in general. And to do that, you have to know a little bit of social science. So social science was introduced in our university, and popular education was introduced in our university as a product of that reform, asking from the student, right? To put an example, the student had a representation in the Senate of the university, and the reform also fight so that the workers who were working in the university, Santa Maria University, also had a representation in the Senate, okay, of the university. And that Senate is the one who, put the policy for the university. In that sense, it was, a very high step of your participation in the educational system. Okay, so there was a strong current within the university that you as a student, you have to participate in the social struggle, right? And that resonated with many people like me. And we started to go to the shantytown to help them to build, their houses, but at the same time to talk with them and to teach them new things and also politics. And so we became involved with different popular shantytown organization around the university, which were in Valparaiso. Valparaiso is very particular. It have a lot of hills, like a little bit like Sheffield, and they have the sea. But people from the near the sea, they never communicate to the people in the hills. So that conference was done by the students in those days, and we participate with the shantytown dwellers. So that's that communication that was done from the university itself. So voluntary work done in those areas was normally for us in those days. Anyway, so this going back to the political situation in Chile, as I said from the beginning, USA was always involved to the point that the latest release from the
CIA.
From the CIA,
Declassified.
The document we were declassified very recently. They show that Allende was elected on September 1970. Before being proclaimed as a president, one of the press mogul in Chile, was the owner of El Mercurio, traveled to United States, and they have a long conversation with Nixon that day. That was from the very beginning. We're talking about September 1970. Right? And of course, most of a substantial number of military who were at the moment in Chile were sent to the School of the American, the infamous School of the American. Right? And one of them was, of course, Pinochet, long time ago. He won I think at the 50s he was already. Pinochet have a long story about being very, not a clever guy, but somehow managed to go through all this. He was the commander of one of the concentration camps during the 50s in Chile, in the south, when the repression went against the miners in those days. Right? It was in the south, in the north of Chile. Anyway, so this collaboration of the oligarchy in Chile directly with United States, and the fact that the whole Latin America was escaping from their hand due to and the impact of the Cuban relations, they designed from the very beginning that Chile should not be the next socialist country in Latin America. I think that's my view. It was decided a long time ago, and they work in that direction. They were definitely in that direction, and they involve the contact that they have through the military, in Chile. They send a lot of, most of the members who were later on in the Secret Service of the DINA, National Director of Intelligence of Pinochet, which was the one who put the whole repression into this resistance movement. You were taught by the School of America and by France. France has a long story on repression through Argelia, and before that from the war in Indochina. So that's So that's create the condition to United States and the oligarchy in Chile and the ruling class in Chile create the condition for a military coup. It was a terrible coup, bloody, very, very terrible coup. And in those days, it was impossible to imagine, the level of the repression that it was in those days. Yeah. So I have to stop, and then later on we can come on if there is more question. But that's happened, at the time of the coup. Then it comes a period where, Chile was absolutely controlled by the military. The military split by itself. Before there was a repression against the people in the Navy who were supporting Allende. There is a lot of military people who were killed, who were in prison before the coup, and also killed later on. Right? But anyway, so that's the repression we came later on from this. It was completely institutionalized by this secret agent with the collaboration with the United States and the people from France who were expert in counterinsurgency.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sergio, for a really good sort of overview of what the Allende government achieved and what it was up against. And I think Maria is going to then follow on from that to focus on September the 11th, 1973, and what followed from there.
Yeah.